Hey guys, today we got a pretty special printer from Creality, which is officially called the CR-30, but also known as the 3D PrintMill. So this is a pretty unique printer, and in this video we're gonna unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Let's get started. Alright, so this is the box that the CR-30 comes in, and you guys can see the picture here, what it looks like. And most of you probably guys recognize Naomi Wu, which had something to do with this 3D print mill. Our dimensions on the box are here in centimeters, and the weight on the shipping label is 46 pounds, which is about 22 kilograms. So let's go ahead and open it up. And this is what we see on the top. So we got the black soft foam, and it is formed, very nice. And this is what we see on top. So it looks like we have all our pieces here, and you guys can see how everything is nicely packed and protected. So here looks like we have the manual and some documentation, some stickers. We do get a roll of white PLA on a 200-gram spool. That's nice. Looks like below that there's quite a few other things. We got our full-size SD card, which is 8 gigs, and a USB adapter. Looks like some extra couplers and nozzles. And here we have a baggie of hardware. Looks like bolts and T-nuts and things like that to put the printer together. Tools and zip ties, some snippers, things like that, a clean out needle. Looks like an optical sensor, maybe an extra one. Our power cord, which is US type, decent length. The spool holder, which is already put together, and it's out of 2 pieces, which is metal and then the plastic part. So over here looks like we got a frame piece to somewhere with a filament detector here. So yeah, as you guys can see, this is definitely going to be some assembling required, obviously. All right, and the next piece here looks like we have, I guess you would call this the upper portion of the printer, but it is on an angle, so I guess it could still be the gantry, right? So yeah, this definitely looks very interesting, guys. It is set up in a Core XY configuration. So at its heart, this is a Core XY machine. That's quite interesting. We are gonna look at this a lot closer a little later, and looks like it is tethered here to the bottom, so carefully remove this. But yeah, check out this foam, guys, very well packed. And so here we can see the bottom. You guys probably can't see it very well, but it is all connected, so we're going to have to be a little careful here. Probably would have been a little better to unbox this thing differently, but in any case, we also do have the controller here. Looks like old school kind. That's also connected to the printer. So a lot of it looks like it's pretty pre-assembled. We just need to put the main parts together. But so I'm going to try to pull it all out together here, guys, which is definitely a little tricky. And the base is very heavy, so there we go. So yeah, that looks like everything for the box. Very nicely packed and very well protected. All right. So this is very exciting and quite a unique looking contraption here. And you guys can see the belt itself. It's quite interesting looking. So it's kind of like a treadmill, I guess. And there's some kind of adjusters here. It looks like maybe for leveling or something. Very interesting. Now, I don't know if it's possible, but I'm gonna flip this thing around, see if we can see the bottom. Because it's all tethered here, it makes it a little more complicated. All right, so we managed to flip it around, and yeah, we have 4 nice large squishy rubber feet, and you guys can see we do have a plate here that looks like taken off. So we're going to go ahead and remove this and see the electronics inside. So let's go ahead and grab the tool bag, which also has some snippers. Very nice. A nozzle wrench. Looks like a calibration spacer of 0.10. So yeah, nozzle clean out needle, some zip ties, and our tools, which include a set of Allen wrenches, a flathead screwdriver, and a few open-ended wrenches. So let's go ahead and find the Allen wrench we need for these bolts. We'll go ahead and remove them. All right, that should be all of them. Okay, and the plate comes off, and there's a little fan attached to it for cooling, which I'll go ahead and unplug. Get it out of the way here. But yeah, it looks pretty simple under here, guys. So yeah, this appears to be more of a design kind of change here, more than on the electronic side. So yeah, that's quite interesting. It makes this printer actually quite simplistic, which is good because it probably means it's very dependable. So yeah, starting here, we can see the power supply, the on and off switch that's fused with the power input here. It is the slim kind, and we have a fan here that cools it off. And if we go on this side of the power supply, we can see that we have our voltage selection there, and ours is on 230, which I need to switch to the 115. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Very simple. So yeah, make sure you check that before you forget about it. That looks like the branding of the power supply. And yeah, everything is very nicely crimped and tightened and routed. And you guys can see we got these ferrites here, I guess for power noise reductions. A lot of that kind of stuff here, so very interesting. So this is the Creality board. The stepper drivers are integrated, but they do have heat sinks on top. There's another heat sink here, looks like for the heated bed. And then we got the main chip right there, which might be a little hard to see, but it is an ARM processor. Full-size SD card, very nice. But yeah, very nice and clean, and what you'd expect from Creality, and that is simplicity with great build quality. So yeah, very happy how this printer is put together so far. So I'm going to put the lid back on and flip it around, and we'll start the assembly. All right, so we got everything flipped back around. Well, let's go ahead and grab our manual. Well, let's see what else is in here. So we got a little warranty card, quality certificate, some stickers, that's cool, an envelope with something in it. I guess a little thank you from Creality. That's nice. And I guess some information of how to contact them. Very cool. We also get an after sales card that, you know, if you have any kind of trouble or have any questions of what's covered, everything is here, including this warranty card that you can fill out and go from there. So yeah, lots of documentation here. Another thank you for your order. And finally, the manual itself. So Creality usually does a great job with their manuals, and this one's no exception, looks like. The parts list of everything that's included. And here's our step one for installation. So for step one, looks like we're going to be working on the front of the printer, installing these two rails. And that's these two right here. So one of them that had the filament detector, and the other one actually I didn't even pull out of the foam. It was still left in there. So yeah, they simply go here on the front. And just like that, I guess. But we're also going to need 4 M512 bolts, which let's go ahead and find them here in our packet. So they are all labeled, but it's a little hard to see. It's on the actual bag. So it's a really nice presentation, but not as obvious. So if you're wondering, it is on the bag. So we got M512s right here. So this is what we're looking for. All right, so hopefully you guys can see here. So the one with the filament detector is going to go here on the right side if you're looking to the front. And the plain one is going to go on this side, which is the left side. So let's go ahead and grab our little bolts and grab our wrench. Go ahead and install this side here. So I'm not going to tighten it yet because this is part of the frame that's going to connect the back part there. So I want to wait before I, solidify it because it can move around a little bit here and there. So we'll go ahead and start this one also. All right, and we'll leave it loose for now so it can move around. And let's go to the next step. So the next step is a little more exciting because we're going to be connecting, I guess, the upper portion here to these rails we just installed, and also to the back of the printer on the base. So we're going to need quite a few different bolts, which are 8 M518s, 2 M512s, and 2 M545s. And if you guys look here, maybe you can see they're numbered. So we got 20. And 20 is here on the sides on the back. The manual does a good job here telling you where each bolt goes. So here we have the packet of M518s. Get those bolts ready. We're going to need 2 of the M512s, which are the shorter black bolts, and 2 of these longer M545. All right, so hopefully you guys can see this pretty well, but yeah, we're going to just grab this upper portion and we're going to set it on top of here, and also it's going to line up here. So let's go ahead and try that. Now make sure that all your wires here are not tangled up, which mine seem to be fine. Maybe I do need to make a spin. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that's a lot better. So I just spun it one way. I think I got it tangled as I was moving it around. But in any case, make sure you're not too tangled up. And it should just sit right on top of these rails here. And then down here, it's going to line up also with the channel and just kind of sit down. So as you guys can see, it should kind of all fall into place. So we're going to grab 3 5/18 bolts, and they're going to go here and then also on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and start them. So I'm not going to tighten them at all. We're just kind of running them down. And before we go to the other side, let's go ahead and put the longer bolt, which is the M545, through here. And it's going to go literally through this channel into this one. And then the smaller one, the M512, will go here. So yeah, this ain't too bad actually. It only seems a little complicated in the beginning, but once you get to it, it's pretty intuitive here of how it comes together. Actually guys, the bolt that goes here is the same one, which is the M5x18, which we used over here. Same one goes here. The one I was showing you earlier was not the right one. I'm not tightening anything. I haven't tightened this bolt, I haven't tightened that one. Just kind of ran everything down. So let's flip it around and go to the other side and do the same thing. So yeah, same thing here. The 3 bolts on the bottom. And then same bolt up here and the large one over here. So yeah, this thing lines up very well together and seems to be all pretty good and solid there. So yeah, the reason we haven't tightened everything because we want to make sure that the frame is going to sit exactly where it wants to and kind of, you know, stretch where it needs to. So you probably want to kind of push down on it a little bit, make sure everything is, you know, in its place. And then when it feels very solid, there's no any kind of unevenness, we can go back and tighten all the bolts that we put in. So I'm going to start with these on the bottom, and then we'll make our way up and then go to the back. So remember also the very first bolts we put in on these pieces down there also. And this is the reason why you want to wait to tighten everything, is because you want everything to line up perfectly and kind of settle down at where it wants to be. And while you are tightening all that, you can go ahead and, you know, tighten the other factory bolts that we haven't touched yet. They look like they could be tightened a little too. So yeah, you just kind of, you know, go around the printer and tighten everything, because bolts do loosen up over time. So we are not done yet, because there are 2 more 5x12 millimeter bolts that actually go from the bottom here. So let's go ahead and see, and we can go ahead and grab those things. Wow, that's quite heavy. But yeah, maybe you guys can see there's one here and one here, and so this kind of holds it from the bottom. And we can go ahead and tighten these up all the way. All right, so yeah, I think we are done with this step. But while we're under here, guys, check out this motor that looks like it has some kind of gear reduction here, which then goes from this gear to this main gear here that turns the belt. Very interesting. This is a very unique printer indeed. So we do have some wiring here that looks like connects here, so I guess I'm gonna go ahead and connect that. But yeah, it looks like, guys, we are definitely getting somewhere, because we have the frame built and it's very solid and feels really good. So yeah, that was all step 2. So for step 3, we're installing the spool holder, which goes here, looks like, for looking at the front, on the right side. So here we have the spool holder, and it looks like it goes right here somewhere, maybe, according to the picture. And we are going to need some T-nuts, 2 of them, and 2 5x8 bolts. Let's grab the 5x8 and also 2 T-nuts. So we're going to grab the spool holder and we're going to put the bolt through there. And then on the other end, we're going to put the T-nut. We're going to start it here, and just like that, you guys can see, on both of the bolts. And so the way T-nuts work is they line up with the channel. Once you start screwing it in, it should spin inside the groove here and then lock in. So yeah, it's just going to drop into the channel like that. And then we're going to grab our wrench. Probably can't see that, but yeah, you want to probably unscrew it a bit, but you want to line it up as close as possible to the center of the channel. And then as you start tightening it, the T-nut should turn and lock in into the channel. So if you're having trouble and it's not locking in, try unscrewing it and then screwing it again, and that should turn it. So it is a little fiddly sometimes. It does work. All right, so one of mine caught, now the other one. So now I just need to tighten it. All right, so once you get those tight, your spool holder should be nice and planted here. So yeah, the filament will go on here, and then it'll kind of feed through the filament detector and then through there into the extruder. All right, so that was step 3. Step 4 is installing the display controller, which also goes right here. And looks like we need to feed it through here maybe. Yes. And mine actually got unplugged, so make sure you check that, plug it back in. And yeah, it's simply gonna sit right here, right on the end. So you kind of want to route your wires here on the back where they're not, you know, going to the front of the spool holder, but the back of it. So yeah, same little bolts with the T-nuts. We're gonna go ahead and peel it here on the screen a bit so we can put the bolt in. The T-nut on the back of it, same way. Again, make sure your plug is plugged in. Mine keeps on plugging for some reason. I guess I keep moving it around too much, but yeah, so same way, guys. We're just gonna line it up with the channel, and the T-nuts will fall into the groove. And then we're gonna grab our wrench and start tightening it up. Yeah, and it should grab. So that one grabbed. Make sure you're centered up. Same thing here. And that one grabbed also. So we're going to tighten it up a little bit. But not too hard, guys, because this top faceplate is plastic, so you don't want to over tighten it. But yeah, that's how the screen goes on. All right, so for step 5, looks like we just need to connect all of our connectors everywhere. Simple enough. And then here we have some leveling tips. So this is going to be quite interesting on the leveling, because we are at a 45 degrees angle. So this could be quite unique, but I'm sure we'll figure it out here. So we got our display plugged in. If we move over here to the extruder, we can see that it's already plugged in, but we do have another wire here with the other motors here, which says Y on it, which will plug in under here to the Y-axis. So I guess because this is a Core XY printer, it makes sense that the belt here is the Z. So yeah, that makes it a little bit confusing than usual, but that's okay. So we do have another plug here, a small one. This one actually goes to the filament detector, and there's a plug on the other side. It should just plug in. So this wire looks pretty good here. And then from our hot end, we have the PTFE tubing that will go into the coupler here. So there is a little clip that we have to pull out from the coupler. Then we're going to push the PTFE tubing to the extruder, and then we're going to insert this little clip back in, and that's going to lock in the tube. So now we went ahead and plugged in that one wire on the bottom you guys saw earlier. And believe it or not, guys, that appears like everything that we have to plug in. So yeah, not too complicated here. All right, so let's take a closer look here at the CR-30 PrintMill. So yeah, it looks quite unique for sure. So let's go ahead and start here on the top. So you guys can see the two motors here for the Core XY movement. We got the extruder here, which is a dual gear, very nice. I definitely like this one here. It's more mechanical, old school, which are my favorite. The motors look pretty nice. So you guys can see the 45-degree angle, and this is what the top rail here rides on. So we got 4 rollers. 2 are stationary, 2 are adjustable. So if your rollers are too tight or too loose, you can see here we got eccentric nuts, and you can adjust them to be closer or farther away. And what you want is you want to be able to spin the roller, like this one's spinning here, in one spot. So that just tells you that, you know, they're loose enough. So if you do need to adjust yours, you can right here with the provided wrench. So the back of the printer, there's nothing too interesting here. We have the belts that run for the Core XY. Now, one thing to note is that these belts are really thick. So yeah, it's more of a heavy duty kind of build here on this printer, and they all come together here on each side to move the hot end left to right, but also the whole axis up and down. So here we have one of the in-stop switches, and then the other in-stop switch is actually in there. Maybe tell it's actually an optical sensor with the nub right here that goes into it. And the main part of the printer, which is this really large belt that runs across pretty long length here. So the idea here is that you can continuously print as it peels off, as the belt continues to, you know, run round and round. So this is the main feature of this printer and what makes it really unique. Now the belt itself has got a really interesting kind of, I'm not sure even know how to explain it, some kind of like a vinyl or something, and it's got like a little pattern in it, so hopefully that sticks pretty well. Got really heavy duty rollers with bearings here, and there looks like to be adjustable parts here that, you know, you can move closer and farther, but it appears to be nicely pre-tensioned, and hopefully it's all level and running straight and we don't have to mess too much with it. But if you do, all of these pieces here, they do adjust, and we also have some adjustments here that looks like have a locking nut, and then we can turn it up and down, looks like from there, and there's like a plate underneath that. So the hot end itself looks pretty generic. It does have 2 parts cooling fans, which is nice. And the heat block is insulated, our heat break fan on the front here. And again, as noted before, it is on a 45-degree angle, so that's going to be quite interesting how it's going to put, especially the first layer down. So yeah, going here to the front, you guys can see we have a really big, large Creality logo. And this is also kind of like a little shield here that keeps the prints from going under, but theoretically as your print starts to, you know, go off here, it should just peel right off. We do have our voltage selection here right up front, which we already changed to 115, so if you have to change that to your voltage, make sure you do that. Our full-size SD card, and here it looks like we have a micro USB connection. And to the right of the printer we have the display. Let's go ahead and peel this protector off. Well, I guess we need to pull the knob off. Yeah, the knob just pulls off and you can get it off completely, and then we'll push it back in. It doesn't really matter which way it goes. It spins around in circles and circles, so it doesn't really matter. So the display is definitely, you know, quite dated looking, and I wish they would have went with something a little bit more modern. At least keep these huge bezels here to a minimum, but you know, it is what it is. And the finish on the front here doesn't look all that appealing either, but in any case, it is the control function and it does work pretty well. I just feel like for this caliber of printer, it should have had a better control display there. So, but yeah, going from there, we can see our spool holder. So our spool will sit in here. The filament will go through the detector into the extruder, and then from the extruder down the PTFE tubing into the hot end. All of our cables are very nicely managed. You guys can see, very clean design. I went ahead and put some zip ties here to clean this part up here. But yeah, overall, very nice looking solid printer and very unique indeed. So on the right side, we have our power input port that is fused with an on and off switch. And on top of that, we can see the manufacturing label. And you guys can see our print volume there is 200 by 170 and infinitely, I guess, long. And a 350 watt power supply. So yeah, guys, very excited and honestly a little nervous of how this is going to work with the whole belt and everything. So I think for the next part, let's go ahead and plug in the cable and turn it on. All right, so we got it plugged in into the wall. Let's go ahead and turn it on and see what happens. All right, so it boots up. And you probably guys can't see that, but there's like a little boot up welcome. Okay, so it looks like it's up and running. There's definitely some noise from fans, quite pronounced actually. So yeah, I just want to mention that. Well, let's go ahead and see what we got in here. I haven't used this kind of system in a while. All right, so we got, let's see, motion here. What's motion? Okay, so we can move axes individually or we can go home. So let's go ahead and click on out of home, see what happens. Let me zoom you guys in here. And right off the bat, I can see that I think the nozzle is way too low. Yeah, it's literally, there's no gap between the bed and the nozzle. So it looks like maybe we do need to be adjusting these knobs here to go up and down. Okay, I see how this works. So basically the top bolt, you unscrew and unscrew, it doesn't really do anything. And then this washer here is the thing that pushes down on the plate. So depending on how much you want to go down, this upper one kind of controls that too. So it's kind of hard to explain, but like right now I pushed it down. There is now a bunch of room. So yeah, it's definitely adjustable. It's a little hard to explain how it's adjustable, but, and as I'm doing this, guys, I'm realizing that maybe I should be moving this thing. So we're going to go to move axes and then move X 1 millimeter at a time, I guess. So now we can move it across and see how it is as we go. It's got to be exactly the same plane as it is on this side. So as we get to this side, now we can level that corner correctly, because if we disable the steppers, we're going to mess everything up and it's just going to fall down. Okay, so that looks about right. To my understanding, the nozzle is only going to touch the bed at this point here on this, so it doesn't move anywhere else. So I'm guessing these are probably fine here. I got this adjusted pretty well between the two ends. Hopefully it's close enough to the bed to stick. And so as it builds, it's going to go up and not, you know, this way. So we should be good. So as long as we can get this plane straight here, and everything after that is pretty reasonable. Should be all right, I think. So I think we're pretty good right there. I do have to say that is a little bit tricky here, I guess, digest of how it all moves, because not only is a core XY, but it's on a 45-degree angle. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can preheat here. So we'll go to temperature, then all the way down to preheat PLA. And we'll start that. So we do have bed heating also, which I guess is under the belt here. And that's going to 55 and the nozzle is going to 185. So while that's warming up, let's go ahead and grab our filament, open it up. You want to cut it on an angle. So we're going to set it here on the spool holder, go through the filament detector, which glows a little light here, indicating detection, and then into our extruder arm. So I'm going to go ahead and push it all the way through to the hot end. And we see some filament coming out over there. All right, so we're good. I can go ahead and raise this. Maybe we can purge a little more. All right. So let's grab our SD card that was included. Plug it in right here in the front. And it does look like it goes upside down. Yes, it does. So you probably guys can't see, but we're gonna go to attach card and then print from card. And let's see if we have any kind of G codes here. No. Oh wait, here we go. Model 3D printing. Okay, so there is some G codes here. So let's just go ahead and go with the first one. I'm not sure what it is. And sorry guys if you can't see anything. Click on print and let's see what happens. For some reason, guys, I don't think I have much faith that it's gonna stick on our first try here, but all right, there it goes. So it's homing. Get that booger out. Yeah, I feel like I might be a little bit too far from the build plate. Oh, let's see. Well, maybe not. Yeah, it's not low enough. Okay, I wonder if there's a way to adjust that. Tune. Okay, so there is baby step X and Y. Is this going to be a Z baby step? Let's see. Okay, so it doesn't let me adjust anything on the Z. Okay, so it does appear to be on the Y. Okay, so we went up a lot. If we go back down, I'm gonna start the print over and see if I can adjust it on the fly. So let's go back, stop print. All right, so we did have somewhat a success there because we figured out how to adjust it. So let's see if we can get it right on our second try. Same print, we'll start the print. I'll zoom you guys in, maybe you can see a little better what's going on over there. While it's heating, I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to tune it. All right, so there we go. Okay, maybe I need to go down just a little more. Go 0.15. Yeah, a little more. I can see it here from the side a little better. So right now I'm 0.25, and that looks just about right actually. So yeah, it looks like I am still a little high. I'm gonna go ahead and go down to 0.5 actually. So quite a bit lower. So I have a feeling that the way it came was actually probably pretty good, the way it was adjusted, and I messed it up because nozzle's on a 45-degree angle. It really has to be very close to the bed, like almost touching, in order for it to have a pretty good successful stick to the bed itself. So anyways, the good part is that it is adjustable, so you can fine tune that as we print it, and it's only really important as it starts printing, because as it continues, it's going to only print on that one line there. So it's not like you would think where it travels all over the bed. It just stays on this plane here. Because it's on a 45-degree angle, it can't really do much more than, you know, stay on a very, very small plane that it has when it gets close to the bed. And so if it needs to move, you know, a long line from here to here, the belt will turn, not, you know, the nozzle travel. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense there. But yeah, we're looking really good. Let me guys get you from another angle where maybe you can see a little better. Or maybe you guys can see here a little better. But yeah, you can see how it's printing on a 45 degrees. So yeah, it's kind of weird, to be honest. Like, I can't imagine that the prints will come out, you know, as good as a typical 90-degree kind of print where it's straight down. But looking at it here initially, it definitely doesn't look bad. So especially, you know, with what it has to work with. So yeah, so far everything looks pretty good and appears to be no issues. We are sticking to the bed, looks like, and the bed is warm and pretty much hot to the touch like you would expect. So the heated part of it is working just fine, and it appears like we're good to go. So yeah, I guess we're gonna let this thing print out and see what comes out. But yeah, you guys can see here we got the old school Marlin software. We're in the baby steps, and this is how much I went offset. So yeah, definitely, you know, not using this for a while, it's a little bit more clumsy, it seems like, compared to what we got these days, but not a big deal. Everything is here, so let's go back here. So here we can see all of our parameters. So we got 210 on the nozzle, 60 on the bed, fans at 100%. That's our coordinates on all the axes, flow rate 100%, percentage done, and how much time passed, which is 9 minutes. And the bar here doesn't look like it filled up yet, so looks like we got a while to go. Now we can adjust a few things. If we go to like tune, we can adjust the speed, the nozzle, the bed, fan, flow, and then our baby steps here. So yeah, and you want to adjust the Y for up and down. That's what worked for me. So, and you can do a bunch of other things here too. So yeah, so that's the basics there, and I think that's all we really need to know at this point. And you guys can see our spool holder is feeding very nicely, and then going through the PTFE tubing there into the hot end. So there's not like a great angle to film this thing at, but it looks like everything is going good so far there. Whatever it's printing. See if I can move this out of the way. It does stick pretty well actually. So this is our first print. Not expecting, you know, too much to go right here, but it would be nice if we can complete it so we can kind of see what we got there and we can learn from it. This is a lot different than normal. It's still very interesting how this thing is working. In any case, guys, we're gonna let this thing print out and we'll see what comes out. So yeah guys, as you saw there, that was our first print to pop off the belt, and our little mini factory here is going pretty good. As you guys can see, that the biggest issue that it is having is the start, and it did get a little better as we went because I did lower the baby steps even lower, so that seemed to help it quite a bit. But yeah, pretty cool how we can just print and they'll just fall right off the edge here as they're completed. Very cool. So I don't know how much more I'm going to print of this, because if you look at the screen, we're right at 9 hours, so, and it's about halfway, maybe a little more. So there's quite a bit more printing to do, but I don't think I want to print the whole thing. It is going to take a while for sure. So, and you guys can see our filament's getting used up. But yeah, as far as the operation and the mechanics, everything is working perfectly. The dual gear extruder is pushing the filament in very nicely, precisely. And the high end doesn't seem to have any trouble either, printing here on this 45-degree angle. And if we take our look at our first cube here, we can see that the layers are sitting pretty well. I don't know if you guys can see that, but not bad, but it's not perfect for sure. So, I mean, this being Core XY plus at a 45-degree angle, it's still very impressive of how straight the layers went down. So yeah, very cool. Alright, so I went ahead and stopped the print because I figured we probably have enough of these things already. And it's pretty cool how the belt kept turning, and we had 2 of them that popped off. And there was no issue whatsoever once it got to this turn here. They just kind of peeled off and dropped on the ground. And there's a plate here that kind of prevents from anything large to get in there, so it pops it off if it does stick too well, I guess. So on our first print, we can see we had a pretty decent start. This is where we started, this little lip right here, and we were a little bit high, but I did lower it then and it seemed fine. And check out the bottom, guys. I don't know if you can see any on this white, but it looks really good, like surprisingly very flat and uniform. So this side is a little rougher because this is where all of our stitching was, meaning like where the nozzle moved up, I guess. And the rest of the sides look pretty good, but in any case, you can't see too well. And there's also a stitching here, but overall I would say very good for this type of printer. Now on our second one, we didn't have much luck in starting because it was still too high, and so this is what happened here. Other than that, the print's exactly the same as the first one, and so on, as you guys can see here. Now I haven't pulled these off the bed, so I'm kind of curious how easy to come off. Let's go ahead and pull this one off. And look at that, it just pops right off. Now what I noticed that the back of it is actually sticking better than the front of it. Okay, so this one stuck a little better overall. Yeah, that seems to be really the perfect amount of clearance because it sticks really good. Yeah, very nice. Now you guys can see that, you know, we're having trouble on the first parts of the print. Like the very beginning is where the trouble is. And the reason for that is, like we talked about earlier, we only have one plane, so one line that we start off with, and then we build off of that one line. So there's nothing to push against. Whenever you're printing straight down, you know, you have a nice uniform kind of resistance between the nozzle and the bed, and the filament flows nicely. But here you're on a 45-degree angle, which makes the hot filament kind of flow out. There's no wall to hit to stop it. And this is why the first layer is so tricky here. But yeah, as you guys can see, you know, all the first layers seem to have trouble. Now I did lower it down some more, and it did get a little better, so you can see that we only have a little bit of trouble on this one. So this one is pretty darn good here. And then the last one was perfect pretty much, which is kind of crazy. You guys can see the first layer there, like it laid down the best so far. So yeah, out of all the cubes, this one here turned out the best, looks like. And what's good about, you know, printing all these little test cubes, let me just bring them all up here so you guys can see how many there are, is that we got to learn a little bit, you know, how it goes and how it flows and how the nozzle reacts with the bed. So yeah, it could be a little tricky to figure out how to get going, but it looks like once you do and everything is adjusted well, you should have very decent success here. So I do want to print my own prints, but there is, you know, a couple more files on here, and I might try them out since we have this spool here. Still have some filament left. So I'm going to go ahead and start something on there, and we'll see if it's worth printing maybe, since we do have it. And you know, they probably test prints made exactly for this printer, which will be good to see. Move these out of the way. Also guys, on this belt here, you can see where the seam is, and it's pretty flush, I guess is the word. There is a little bit of a bump in it, and you know, the belt is flexible, So I'm not sure how well this would do with like a large print, because on this side here we actually have a little bit of like a peel up, like the belt is trying to go up, and I don't know if it's maybe overstretched or just the nature of it. So I'm guessing, you know, printing to the very edge might not be the best outcome, but looks like, you know, about an inch or so from the edge, or at least here on my build it looks a little more flat. Now it's possible that maybe we can raise these up a bit, push the center up a little so the edges fold in, so maybe that's an option there to do. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But overall this belt system is really unique. Alright, so it looks like that print is starting that we initiated. We might have to adjust it, so I'm going to go to tune and then baby step on Y. Yeah, it's reset itself, so we definitely need to go down. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 0.5 because I know that works perfect. So for some reason it looks like the same print we just printed actually. Yeah, it does look like exactly the same print we printed, so it must be just a single print of one of these test cubes again. So let's just cancel that, and I'm going to go and print something else here. Get you guys a little closer. So there it goes, starting up. You have a booger on there, should grab it. Alright, so yeah, that looks like a good purge there. Alright, so it looks like we're definitely a good amount from the bed. Especially on that first layer, you want to be a little lower. So maybe it's a good idea actually, now that I'm doing it, is to go down even more on the first layer, just to make sure, you know, you get that good first layer sitting to the belt. And then after that we can, you know, bring it up just a little bit where it's not too low, because now that it has a nice wall to, you know, purge against or print against, there shouldn't be any issues. So. Alright, so I went ahead and brought it back to the 0.5 where I think it should be, and it's printing away. So, and look at that, now it's moving real quick. So yeah, and that's one thing we haven't really talked about, is that because this is a Core XY, you can technically, you know, do some pretty quick speed printing. So once you figure out all your parameters and all your settings, you can really make this thing boogie along for sure. So this looks like a pretty large print. We'll see what it is. Kind of interesting. And also guys, I don't think we have listened to the printer yet, so let me bring my microphone in. So to be honest, the printer is actually very quiet, except for that, I guess, either power supply or the cooling fan underneath in the motherboard there. So the movements are actually quite quiet, and all the fans are on the hot end. So yeah, it's not that, it's mostly under here. So alright, so this print is done, and it took 8 hours and 48 minutes, it says on the clock there. So you can see that it's actually a benchy, which is on a 45 degrees, which is, I guess, one way to cheat the 45 degrees is print on a 45-degree angle. Yeah, that's quite interesting, but I haven't took it off the bed here. It's stuck to the belt very well, actually. So this one, I think I might have lowered a little more, but let's see. Yeah, it's coming off pretty easy though. Wow. Okay, so there's no damage to the belt at all or anything weird, so yeah, I guess we're good. And I don't know if you guys can see the bottom, it's very smooth, like very smooth. So yeah, the belt actually makes a really nice surface. You can see here our edge, this is the hardest part to start, but we had definitely a lot better success here. But once it started, it was, you know, pretty much perfect. So on this face here, we can kind of see like little bumps there, and this is, I guess, the stitches. So overall, just on this filament here, I mean, the layers do sit pretty well. And we have the benchy on top, so I wonder if it comes off. Let's see. Now it looks like it's, well, it almost looks like it does come off because there's like some gaps there, but I'm not sure if it's supposed to. Oh, okay, it does. Well, maybe not. I did just rip it off. Anyways, it's fine. We can still look at it here. So yeah, I mean, this is an enlarged benchy. You guys can see it's quite big. And the walls do sit pretty well, the layers, but I do have to say, you know, there's like these little lumps here and there. It's definitely not perfect. And our retraction is not enough, looks like, according to this slicing here on this benchy. Other than that, guys, I mean, it looks pretty good. It's definitely not like you would expect, but at the same time, it's actually really good for what this printer is and how it prints. So yeah. So we get another successful print. So I think for the next part, we should go to the computer, install the slicer, and we'll slice some of our old prints and see how they'll print out. All right, so here we are by the computer, and I got the SD card plugged in. Let's see what's on it. Okay, so it looks like we have a user manual. Looks to be similar or exactly the same as what we got. Software and drivers, and it looks like, guys, we have the slicer for Mac. So that's good to see, because that's what I need, and we'll be installing this here in a second. And also looks like we have some kind of profile for Cura. So I think I'm going to go ahead and install their Creality belt slicer, then try to figure out the Cura. So here we have some troubleshooting guide. A lot of information here, guys. Yeah, this is nice to see that they got a lot of question and answers there. We got some models here. Couple G-codes which we printed, and then some STL files. Let's see what this is. Some kind of guide. Oh, it's the fan. Okay, so this is the parts going fan on one end, and check it out how it's made. It's actually like a 90-degree. Very interesting. And that's the other side. So all right, cool. The last one here is we got a little video looks like of how to assemble it. They do go through the leveling here, which we kind of figured out. So yeah, this is a really good video that goes over all the basics here. All right, so let's go back to the software, and we'll click on Mac, and let's see if we can install this thing. So on the Mac, we got to grab this and drag it to applications, and the installation has begun. So we got this thing that appeared, Creality belt. Let's click on it, see what happens. Okay, so that's this here. Okay, so I clicked on this little image here, and I think it's opening it up. And by the way, guys, I did forget to mention, if you can't install it, you have to go and allow access or verify that you want, Creality belt to be installed. But for me here, it didn't even ask that, so I guess we're good to go. Okay, so we got a disclaimer that we have to agree to. I guess let's just agree to it. Okay, so here we have right off the bat the 3D PrintMill, and we'll add that. And here we have the slicer. Man, that is long. Not even sure how long that is, but it looks very long. All right, well, let's do something simple here. What we know how to do is throw in, let's say, a calibration cube. And look at that. Now, I'm not sure if it needs to be that far down the belt or not. I guess it doesn't really matter technically. We'll leave it right there. And by the way, if you've used the Cura or something like that, this looks very similar. So if you click on the model, you can see you can move it around the plate anywhere you want. And then here you have on the side other things you can do. So like scale it and move it around and mirror it and whatnot else. So this looks very much like a Cura slicer. So if you're familiar with that, it should not be very hard to use here. But yeah, here we have configuration, which is 45 degrees, a 0.4 nozzle, PLA material, yes. So we can use recommended or custom. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but let's see what custom is. Okay, so here we have something interesting. The first thing here, it says copies. So you can make multiple copies. So if you wanted to make 100 of these calibration cubes, I guess you can. And there's their distance between the copies. Print raft, no. Adjust belt walls. Okay, so I guess we're just gonna leave this all the way it is. Very interesting. So yeah, this is the Creality belt section. Let's see what we got here. Quality. So we got 0.2 layer height, just fine. Wall count 3 layers. Yes, looks good. So yeah, everything looks like it's where it needs to be. I'm gonna go through this and look real quick. Okay, infill density 0, that's not good. Make this at 20%. I think I normally use grid or lines, I can't remember. Let's just go with grid. Material, so here we have the printing temperature, 200, probably fine. And then build plate is 60, flow 100%, retraction distance 8 millimeters, sounds about right. Now I'm not sure why this retraction speed is so high. It seems like a little too fast, honestly. But we're gonna leave it the way it is since it's the way it came. So print speed here at 40 millimeters, which is a little slow. I think we should speed that up to 50. And I think our infill should definitely be at 50 also. And then here we have slower layers. So I guess this is the very first layer, so it slows down. So I guess we'll keep that at 4. Cooling looks good. Supports we don't need. Build adhesion, nothing's available there. Or dual extruder, mesh fixes, I guess we'll leave it the way it is. And look at that, guys, we actually have spiralize mode, which is yeah, kind of interesting. I wonder if it even works on this printer. I guess we're gonna have to try that out and see if we can print something in spiralized. And then we got enable coasting. So let's go ahead and hit the prepare button here, and it should slice, and it was pretty much immediately. It says it's gonna take 32 minutes, which is about the usual. So we can go ahead and save it straight to the removable drive. Let's just go ahead and do that. Well, you couldn't do it, it said error. Well, let's save it to the file then. It's a very long name. We'll just call it XYZ. All right, save it, and that was successful. And we can see that file right here being saved. So now we can just drag it to the SD card, and if we open it up, we can see it right there. Now we can go to the printer and print our calibration cube. So I'm gonna go ahead and also do a benchy. Let's see if we can clear this. Clear build plate. Pretty much the same settings we have on the calibration cube, so it should be fine. We'll see how it goes. It's kind of interesting. Save this one, and we're good to go. So let's go see if we can print these out, and we'll see how they turn out. All right, so I changed the filament to this silky black. All right, so we're starting up. Okay, so it is purging. Add a little light, and hopefully you guys can see there that we are printing the calibration cube at 45 degrees angle. But yeah guys, as long as you figure out the distance between the bed and the nozzle, it seems to work very well. I did turn down the speed just a little bit too, just to make sure, you know, it laid down nice, and that seemed to work pretty good. And now it's just boogieing along and printing our calibration cube. All right, so our calibration cube and benchy are done. You guys can see that I had to print the benchy with supports, and we'll talk about that in a second. Well, let's go ahead and look at the calibration cube. Now I realize that this is not the usual calibration cube I print, but I guess for this printer it doesn't really matter. I think this is the dual color one where there's more inserts inside for like a multicolor one, but in any case we can still see the walls really easily. So let's start here with the X, and because this is a Core XY machine, this is not going to be relevant to the X axis itself and also the 45 degrees. So yeah, surprisingly it's still printed out this cube very reasonably well, and you guys can kind of see the diagonal lines there, which is the 45 degrees. But yeah, overall it looks really good, and the layers are sitting a lot better than I thought they would with this type of printer. And what's even more impressive is the bottom, which lays down really well on that belt. So yeah, I probably said this a million times, but as long as you have the nozzle correctly offset, it seems to stick and sit on the belt very nicely. And our top looks pretty good too. So yeah, not too bad. Now for the benchy, I did start printing in normal, like sitting like this, and I realized that wasn't gonna work, and I guess it didn't really hit me until later. Because the nozzle is at 45 degrees, if you tried to print the up and down like a normal, like this, what's gonna happen is it's gonna try to print the most outer part first, so it's gonna start printing in the air. So this really kind of like messes with your idea of how you think about models, and it actually makes it pretty hard to figure out what models you can print and not print on this kind of printer. And so printing something like this is definitely better to orientate at 45 degrees and then use supports in order to get decent results. As you guys can see here, we got pretty good results, but they're definitely not perfect as you would expect. And you guys can see how we had the supports sitting there. So yeah, hopefully they pop off pretty easy here. Well, they are popping off, but it will take a little bit of time. So let's just go ahead and look at it. So we can see here the sides look pretty decent. We do have like these lines and marks going through, and you guys can see the infill through there. And I guess that just couldn't be concealed in those 3 layers. So the writing on the back here is completely blobbed out, so you can't see anything. So detail is not great as far as micro detail. We do have a slit in the box. Overhangs are very nice and decent. But yeah, overall, I mean, you know, this is what you can expect from the CR-30 here printing in this fashion. And I would say it actually did pretty well. There's a lot of things that are different about this printer, and realizing that almost everything needs to be printed in 45 degrees to get good results made me realize that this printer is pretty limited to something that's more basic, not a complicated shape or has a lot of detail in it, you know, and especially if it needs to be long. This is where the strengths of this printer is. So for the next part, let's jump back to the computer real quick and we'll slice something a lot longer. All right, so we're back at the computer, and let's really quickly here try to slice something that's pretty long, which I downloaded this sword here. Hopefully we can make it work. You guys can see how large it is. Wow, that's huge. So yeah, we're gonna have to fit it on this belt somehow, and it does look like we're gonna have to scale it down. So let's go ahead and rotate it. And you guys can see we're definitely gonna have to scale it down here. So let's try about 70%. And the sword just flew away for some reason. But in any case, yeah, it looks like it's still too big. Maybe 65. Oh yeah, that looks like that should fit, 65. Yeah, that looks good. So what I'm gonna do with this sword, and I think it's gonna work out pretty good, is I'm going to highlight it and then use the move function here. And I'm just gonna move it until it splits it completely in half. if you guys can see that. So just make sure you're looking at it straight from the side. Anyway, so yeah, we're just gonna split it right in half right on the bed. That looks like it's exactly half. So the idea here is to print one half of it and then print another half and then glue them together, because obviously you can't print all these things here flat on the bed without having supports, and that's gonna be a pretty huge mess. So yeah, I think that's gonna work out pretty good. So let's go ahead and slice that. And down here we can see our dimensions, 180 by 108 by 26 tall. So 108 is going to be the length of it, which is quite long actually. And on the settings here, I think we're going to pretty much keep everything as it was. Maybe bump up the speed to 60. Let's just go ahead and slice it. And you guys can see there, it's going to take 10 hours and 42 minutes, so about 11 hours. It might be a little longer than that with all the retractions and everything. But yeah, this should work out pretty good, and we should have a half of a sword, and then we'll print it out twice. I guess we can go up here and click on 2 copies here, and it'll print 2. Now I'm not sure if this here is a good amount, the 300 millimeters, and I don't know where it takes the point from the edge of the print or from the middle of the print. So yeah, I'm probably just going to print this as one, and then I'll just restart and print another one. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and print this out and maybe a few other things, and we'll check them out. So we ran out of filament while printing the astronaut, and the printer did pause. It says here to change the filament, pull the old one out, and I don't have exact replacement, but I do have this more shiny one that's silky blue, I guess, so we'll just use that to finish it up. So it did cool off the nozzle. It's preheating. It should continue where it left off. All right, so it's actually out of purging. Now it's asking me to purge more or continue. We'll continue, and it should start printing. There it goes. So yeah. And that's how simple it is to change the filament and continue printing. Well guys, shortly after changing the filament, the whole model broke loose from the belt. So yeah, I guess that's not gonna work out, unfortunately. And yeah, that's what happens whenever the bed cools off. There's a chance that the model can pop off. So even on this kind of belt, looks like. Alright, so let's take a look at the few prints that we printed. So as you guys saw there, the astronaut guy got early termination, but we did do a spaceship in spiralized mode, which is kind of cool, and also a pretty long print here in the back we'll look at in a second. So let's go ahead and start with the spaceship, and you guys can see I printed it at 45 degrees angle, and the reason we have to do that is because we wouldn't be able to print in spiralized mode, which is one layer around, without putting it on a 45 degree, because this is the plane on the top here. So yeah, if one thing you take away from this whole video is that a lot of things you do have to print at 45 degrees, especially more complicated shapes. So, and you guys can see we had to have supports. I don't know how easy these are going to come off, but yeah, because this is in spiralized mode, it's just one layer, it's literally breaking it apart. So well, the bottom comes off pretty easy. In any case, guys, let's go ahead and look at the side walls here. So we can see the layers actually, went down pretty good. And the reason we have more dots on this side is because this is where the next layer transition is. But like on this side, we can't see none of those dots. So it's basically the seam is scattered all around randomly. But yeah, I mean, overall, it looks really good. As far as the layer bonding, it's pretty uniform. Honestly, it looks much better than usual, especially for the small size. And as we go up here, we're going to really see how well this printer did. Everything looks super nice and smooth, and the most amazing part is nothing melted here. So this is a pretty small spaceship. Normally this would melt easily, but it did not, so that tells me this printer has excellent cooling. And yeah, so you are able to print in spiralized mode, but you do have to deal with this, so it's not ideal for sure. So I would definitely not recommend printing in spiralized mode with this printer. And so I do like to print astronaut with the spaceship, but this astronaut here was not finished, as you guys saw there, but that's okay. We could still see pretty well how everything went down. And you guys can see there's little X patterns in here, which For some reason the infill is showing through. I'm not sure why that's the case because we do have 3 layers on the outside, so it's pretty thick, but we still have the infill coming through. That might have something to do with the settings where it's overlapping too far. So again, we had to use supports and they're not coming off too easy, so that probably needs to be adjusted somewhat. Yeah, I mean, that's how this astronaut came out. Not too bad, I guess. And again, because of the way this thing is, it's not really ideal to print any normal prints. But what it is ideal for is something like this print here, a sword. I don't know if I can fit it in the frame, but it is quite long, as you guys saw there. And so yeah, what we did was we printed 2 halves, so 2 pieces each on one side, and then I just glued them together. Hopefully you guys can see that. And yeah, it turned out really good. I mean, it's not perfect, but you know, for something this long that's kind of, you know, somewhat useful, I guess, it's pretty awesome that we're able to print this in one piece. Now, to make the argument that, you know, you couldn't print smaller pieces of the sword, even maybe standing up like this on a normal printer and still glue them together and get the same results. That's true. You could, obviously, but you know, like this, you have a much more solid piece because instead of gluing it in sections, you technically could have one solid piece depending on what you're printing. But like in this sword's instant, we have 2 of the same halves on each side glued together, which makes it a lot stronger and a lot more usable, I guess. But I wouldn't say that's, you know, a strong argument there. So, and because it prints, you know, like this, our weakest point is when we bend it this way, it could snap easier because all our layers are like this. They're not long ways. So to kind of understand why this printer exists, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that there might be a few people out there that could have a use for something like this that need multiple parts that are simple, that can be printed at a 45-degree angle, and they need a lot of them continuously, which this belt will provide. But to be honest, for a hobbyist that, you know, needs one good printer, this is definitely not your printer here. So this is something for someone that's really into printers and has all the printers out there but wants something very unique. This one definitely provides that and a unique experience. But as far as being practical and simplistic, I would definitely not recommend this for that or for your only printer. So yeah, guys, overall I think this is a very unique printer that has a lot of unique features about it. The 45 degrees, the Core XY movements, the whole belt driven build plate. It does have a dual gear extruder, which is very nice. Filament detector, silent steppers. The overall build quality of this thing is super solid. Everything is high quality and made out of metal. I do like that it accepts the full-size SD cards. If one thing that kind of hinders this whole printer from feeling up to date is going to be the screen here and the UI. I don't mind it as much, but using the newer touchscreens and just the ease of navigating makes me realize that this is kind of outdated. So yeah, I was very happy to get my hands on this printer and do this unboxing and little overview for you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, then hit that like button. If you want to pick up this printer for yourself, I'll have some links in the description. Check it out. And also, guys, check out my 3D printing playlist. I have quite a few printers I've done videos on. I'm sure you find something interesting there. And if you did get to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you for watching and supporting this channel. So as always, guys, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.